Welcome, everybody. This is Gary Van Antwerp from Training Magazine Network. I'd like to welcome you to today's event, Slash Your Mobile Learning Authoring Time. Convert legacy desktop courses to responsive e-learning. This is a great session. You can squeeze some additional value out of all that work you've done in the past on those legacy courses. Our session today is sponsored by Adobe Captivate 2017, and we have a great speaker today. If you have not had the pleasure of listening to Beam Call do one of these presentations, you're about to enjoy it now. We have had the pleasure of working with Beam several times, and he's turned out to be just a great addition to the team at Adobe that does these webinars with us. So I'll turn things over to him. I do want to let you know that the Online Learning Conference is coming up. Of course, Adobe is a sponsor of the of Training Magazine's Online Learning Conference. That'll be in New Orleans, the 25th to the 27th of September. And you should jot down this discount code you see on the screen in front of you, TMNC, because that'll save you $250 on registration. Now, you can go to onlinelearningconference.com. You'll be able to print the brochure, see all the schedule, see who all the speakers are, and so forth. Just go to onlinelearningconference.com to learn more about all that, okay? And also want to let you know that the Insights widget for today, the link for it is right there on the screen. If you're an Insights widget user, there are about 12,000 of you. We'll go ahead and click that link now so you can launch it. Otherwise, I'll post it a little bit later on in the chat as well. And that's how you can print your certificate to prove you were here and use that to apply for SHRM or HRCI or other credits as well. Okay. We have another excellent webinar coming up very shortly here with Dr. Alan Partridge. Many of you know Dr. Partridge on April 26th. He'll be talking about the 6 steps to expand employees' critical thinking skills. That's going to be an outstanding session, and Alan's a great person to do that. So plan to set aside that date. That should be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're looking for the recording of today's session, this session that we're in right now, you can just go to trainingmagnetwork.com tomorrow. And on the right-hand side of the page, just click the buttons there where it says Recorded Webinar Archive. You'll be able to find all of the, I think we've probably got 50 or 60 Adobe recordings in there, as well as several hundred others. You can access all of those for free. They'll be there forever as of tomorrow. And the newest ones are always posted at the top of the page. They'll be easy to find. Also, take a minute to explore the free white papers. You can download any of those. And then be sure and check the calendar of the upcoming webinars, because the one I just told you about with Alan Partridge will be right there for you. Okay, so you can do that. We are sponsored today by Adobe Captivate 2017. It's a little bit different than this slide says, so I want to let you know Adobe Captivate 2017 is the leading e-learning tool that lets you create almost any kind of e-learning. Now, Beam's going to talk to you a lot today about mobile, but it's much broader than that too. With the recently launched free iPad app, also Adobe Captivate Draft storyboarding for e-learning courses is also a breeze. And then you can also try out the new LMS from Adobe, Adobe Captivate Prime, which makes it easy to set up and get going with your LMS within 90 minutes. It's pretty darn fast for an LMS, right? So take charge of your e-learning environment and your learning environment with these powerful solutions from Adobe, and you can go to adobe.com to learn much, much more about that, and you're about to learn a great deal from our friend Beam Call, a product evangelist at Adobe Systems. I want to tell you a little bit about Beam before we start. Beam Call is with Adobe Systems as a product consultant, enabling and supporting the worldwide sales and consulting endeavors for e-learning and technical communication. For the last 3 years, Beam has built and managed a learning and development unit within Amazon.in called Seller University, which strives to provide learning assets and programs to enable sellers to excel within their businesses on Amazon. Beam also presents at various learning and design conferences. In fact, he is in Washington, D.C. right now because he's been presenting at a conference there. And he generally likes to talk about the concept of video and learning and the direction it has been and is moving forward. So our session today, again, slash your mobile learning authoring time, convert legacy desktop courses to responsive e-learning. Let me welcome back to Training Magazine Network, Beam Call.
Thanks very much, Gary, and welcome everybody to today's session. It's fantastic having you everybody here. Thanks for taking out the time once again. A couple of housekeeping things before we get the show on the road. There is a chat pod which you guys are using to communicate with each other. Please put in your questions or comments. I have a couple of members from my extended family, the engineering team, who is on this session. If you have any questions or comments, we'll try to take up as many of those as we can. And these guys are, top of the line when it comes to R&D and engineering. They will try their best to answer your questions. There is also a couple of questions that I put in as a poll. One is, would you like to know more about Adobe Captivate Prime, our learning management system, which we have just proudly launched the newest version of just a few days ago? And also, what kind of other e-seminars or webinars or conference topics would you like to know more about? I would request you to put in topics around the learning and development space if possible, but of course, Spectrum is good with me as well. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, please put it in there. So today's session is mostly about how you can use a desktop tool, an authoring tool, to slash your authoring time if you have a lot of legacy content. So just to kick it off, I was at the Adobe Learning Conference yesterday in DC, and just a fantastic day I had. I met a ton of people, and the kind of knowledge sharing and community power that I felt yesterday was unparalleled. Uh, so I'm gonna take a small line out of Mr. Ray Jimenez's book, who spoke about microlearning yesterday at the conference. And first off, he's such a quirky and amazing personality, phenomenal reservoir of knowledge. He mentioned that as soon as you hear somebody say, "Hey, I got a tool that can pump out mobile learning," what do you think? What is the first thing that we would think? We would think of, let's say, putting in 1,000 slides and putting it out as a mobile course. And of course, he meant that in a way that that's definitely not the way to go. He was talking about how uh, you need to look at chunking your legacy content or microsizing it, selecting all the useful information that you need, and then pushing it out as mobile learning. Uh, so where are we when it comes to device learning? Where are we on the landscape? None of these statistics that you see on screen right now should be alien to you in any way. We are at that precipice. We are at the zenith where the past decade has seen an explosion in mobile technology. In a pretty short period of time, we've gone away from actually being tethered to bulky desktops and carting around 20-pound laptops to just carrying pocket-sized computers in our pocket. Uh, so at this point, it's almost a foregone conclusion that a good e-learning strategy or a good content creation strategy should always include mobile learning. Now, though there may be many reasons to adopt mobile learning into your training, there are particularly mainly 5 reasons why you should be looking at it if you haven't already. The first thing that I always think about is convenience. The greatest advantage of mobile learning is that learners can always carry their class materials almost anywhere they go. And as long as they're within range of a wireless signal or a network, a learner can take their learning with them. And in some cases, even if they're not, the asynchronous capability or the offline capability of your learning application can also enable them to then synchronize their learning once they come within range. The second one is quick distribution. Now, according to a research, 64% of American adults now own a smartphone, while many others on the other side interact with a mobile device of some sort on a regular basis. Now, this being the case, we now have more communication open to us than ever before. So, if we as creators and we as authors actually depend and use the pivot of technology to create content which is enriching and engaging, we should also always believe that our learners as well will be using devices to learn and connect and join in as well. So for learners, this entire convergence of mobile rich content engagement means that your entire class can be brought up to speed at the moment the need arises. I see a quick question has come up from Ken. So Ken, CX is the short form for customer experience. So it kind of relates back to how every employee who might be benefiting from mobile learning will always be contributing to the bottom line of their company when it comes to customer experience. So it almost goes beyond just having somebody do regular trainings just because they have a gun held to their head. Mobile learning is going to kind of take it to that next level. So and the third reason why is collaboration. Now, as much as mobile learning connects you to your learners, mobile learning also connects learners to one another. Now, mobile platforms make for a great opportunity to incorporate social learning into courseware as well. Now, allowing your learners to actually go ahead and communicate with each other over forums and private messages so that they can supplement learning and reinforce it is just a wonderful way to go. I have been continuously talking to a lot of community experts over the past week, meeting a lot of customers, and the common sentiment and the common consensus is that community is taking on an amazingly powerful status now. Since technology has brought the world into one level playing field, the internet is everywhere, it's just become so easy for all of us to communicate with each other and learn from each other. And this learning that I like to call it experience-based learning. It's how we narrate experiences, it's how we talk about how we get things done, which actually helps each other to learn a lot quicker than sending like a massive PDF and then sending a, let's say maybe a assessment later and saying, okay, get it done and you'll know everything you need. So, and engagement. So now let me ask you guys a question on the engagement part. Like, this is the fourth thing that I believe is one of the top 5 benefits. How many times did all of you in the last week just pulled out your phone and the first thing you did was jump into social media and do nothing else? How many times in the last week have you guys done that? Just pulled your phone out and opened the browser and hit, let's say, Facebook, Twitter, gone to a blog or gone to a forum. Okay. I'm getting like gazillion, multiple times a day, 100 times. Nina says cannot count. Gary says no. Often. Great. And Brandy says more than I want to admit. AB says zero, nada, haven't done it at all. So let's just be fair. Like, okay, for certain people who say that we didn't do it at all in the last week, I just love Gary's comment. Gary says, would it be interesting to inquire on everyone's age? Yeah, I know. I think that could give us like a really amazing delta if that piece of data comes to us. But I love it. Everyone's so cool. Oh, cool. Okay. So the reason why, like, one of the reasons why this statistic kind of works is our constant proximity to a world of information has made once mundane activities and downtime into a very welcome opportunity. Now, when I talk about social collaboration, trust me, it's for me as well. It's got much more to do than just blinging up someone else's profile with a like or writing a hapless comment under another torrent of hapless comments. So for me, social media interaction is more about benefiting from visual aesthetics, trying to understand experiences from other folks. So that's great. Now, if you throw e-learning into the mix, these moments of downtime that your learners will have can become bursts of productivity. Now, when you mean social media engagement on a learning platform, it stems more from the fact that You want your learners to be part of a community, which might be internal, which you have built as part of the structure. And in any case, when you have a lot of learners who join this community, there's always like a to and fro pace of information. So community is really important when it comes to engagement. And the last point is self-driven. Now, when you have mobile content, or you're looking at that strategy to start to begin to modulate mobile content, it actually represents the pinnacle of user control. Your learner can, of course, choose to consume the content on the move. It's flexible. They can choose to access it from any location. It makes learning more available. And it's also a really easy way to repurpose and share new content. So what are the 4 C's of mobile learning? It's content, capture, compute, and communicate. Content is really important in the context of when you're trying to project any kind of a piece of information on a mobile phone. The design aesthetics will differ. There would be certain modules and projects that you would be working on where one size fits all may work, but of course, as designers and developers, you want to have that freedom to be able to create content that can immediately be published to various devices. So to be able to capture nuggets of information that can be placed in your module, to also give your user, your learner, the ability to interact or compute, and also communicate, generate feedback, or communicate with each other. So as I mentioned, some of the things that you need to think about when you're when you're starting on that journey of mobile learning, or you're looking at that ton of legacy content that you already have. Mobile learning is not e-learning on mobile. So again, as Ray Jemin has said yesterday, don't look at those 10,000 slides of PowerPoint that you have lying around and suddenly decide that I'm going to push all of these through Captivate 2017 and I'm pretty much done. Always use something called the context of learning. Start microsizing your content to figure out what pieces of content would be great on mobile from an experience angle, but also from an information angle. What would be most useful for your learners? Now, affordance of devices is really something that I hear a lot. A lot of customers and a lot of our community designers always tell me that sometimes within institutions, devices may not be that widely available to a lot of folks. It's not something that's alien. Statistics like 76% of people use mobile phones. Yes, there is a 24% piece that don't still. So always try to kind of take care of that piece. Narrow the field down and choose the correct design approach. One of the things that you would see in the newest release of Captivate 2017 is you have something called device-specific previews. Now, within the device-specific preview option, we went ahead and put in certain devices that we tested outputs on, and you can now just target certain pieces of content to hit that particular device. You can, of course, still customize sizes and create content for various custom resolutions, but we thought it would be a lot easier for you to just pick and choose. And offline availability. When you talk about offline availability, it always stems back to your learner being able to resynchronize once they have uptime. So if they're away from a wireless, from a Wi-Fi, or from an internet signal, you want them to be able to still take the course on a mobile application, and then once they come back into range of a signal, it will resynchronize with your learning management system or the cloud, and they're well back on their way. And the last one, always choose the correct tool, or always choose the correct set of tools. Even if you have a variety of authoring tools, the purpose of an LMS, a learning management system, or how I like to call it, the database of e-learning, becomes a really good ally in this battle of mobile learning for you. So I think this is something that all of us swear by, visual aesthetics. I am not a huge fan of putting a lot of content on a web page or on a slide. I would only do that if I wanted to write Encyclopedia Britannica and I wanted to bore the hell out of someone maybe, but no. I always love going for a minimalistic GUI. Now, Miller's Law, Sunday asked a question, what is Miller's Law? Miller's Law is actually the 7 plus minus 2 law, where Miller said that on a particular screen, the amount of interactions or the amount of data objects that you should have are a maximum of 7 or a minimum of 5 or 4. So it's just a kind of a thumb rule for you to kind of look at putting text phrases, images, interactions, and kind of setting them up nicely so they look really good. Avoid integrate graphics and images. One of the things for point number 3, when you're avoiding integrate graphics and images, I'm not sure how many of us are already doing this, but I use a lot of infographics now. I think infographics for me has just revolutionized the way that I learn myself, because I'm a visual learner. So I love looking at something. I love looking at video. I love looking at infographics, and I kind of like then take that back with me. I reflect on it. I rewind, and I'm able to do that. Also, use recognizable icons. If you are into designing your own icons, I'm pretty sure you have a style guideline or a style catalog, which makes sure that you always keep with the code or keep with the branding of the way you want it. Avoid background images and patterns. Try not to use gradient fills or layered fills or a mosaic tile kind of background, which would just start clashing with what's up front. The way that I saw, so in the conference yesterday, this is like something that I saw, is one of the great presentations I saw was where somebody had just started using blank white PowerPoint, and he had just listed out bulleted points. So why, like how it actually affects your learner or affects your user is that you obviously want them to concentrate only on the content and the mode and the direction that you're taking them. Anything else apart from that may distract them from the ultimate goal. Also, reduce scrolling. So you always want to be using concise text patterns which don't flow over or go over to the next page, because you only have a limited time to engage your user. You don't want them scrolling up and down, side to side, or even bending over sideways to just find out what's going on. So reduce scrolling, use concise text patterns, use simple colors and fonts, and infographics. We spoke about that. Really amazing stuff if you already are doing that. So in conference yesterday, my topic, my track was on learner profiles. I actually spoke about the 4 different kind of learners that they're out there, a couple of methods on how you can identify them, and how you can go ahead and just use your current e-learning content that you have, customize it, and then send it out to the different kinds of learners so that it suits their learning methodology. Mostly I spoke about visual learners, auditory learners, read and write learners, and kinesthetic learners. Now, retention and reflection is something that I spoke about in terms of mobile learning actually helps you retain a lot of information and helps you in reflection, because you have content on the move. So you can choose to kind of go away from the content, just effectively just think about what you learned in that instant, chunk it in your mind, and then go back. Now, there's nothing better, because this is something that I believe that has worked for me a lot, is I'll download a lot of information, but I would like to then take a break and kind of walk around, I don't know, fiddle around, pick up a book, read that for a while, and then come back. It not only refreshes your mind, but it also increases recall value. So this is definitely like different learning methods, but mobile learning, or if you're creating content that's accessible by mobile, will kind of send your learner into this path where they can actually use it and reflect. And there's a comment here that came up from Annika, which I'm going to read out, because Annika, that is a fantastic comment. That's a comment that came in from the front row yesterday in my track, where somebody said different learning styles are helpful for everyone, multiple exposure. I completely agree, because the way that it's going to move forward now is we are going to be giving our learners that entire catalog of learning options. They can choose video, They can choose conversational audio. They can choose scenarios where a conversation is going on and there's a learning outcome based on branching, or we can just put up a visual picture as well. All four of these channels will have the ultimate learning goal or the outcome, but your user can choose one of the four or all four of them. So great comment, Annika. So now before I actually, we're going to be looking at Captivate 2017, pose a presentation. I'm going to show you a couple of amazing new features that will just completely cut your authoring time in half, where you can actually put in a lot of your legacy content into Captivate and push it out as mobile. But other mobile learning technologies that are out there on the landscape and are being worked feverishly upon, push versus pull learning, audience response systems, augmented reality, wearable computing devices, commute time learning, video networks, QR codes, and even AI-based voice recognition systems. So if any of you want to read more about this, you can go out there on the web. There's a lot of amazing stuff that a lot of authors are writing about this. There's a lot of research that's being done. So you can choose to read about this and learn a lot more. So this is just like a snapshot of a quick portfolio where you have how mobile learning can support different kinds of trainings that you're already doing in your organization. It goes all the way from the spectrum from onboarding to on-field engineering support. So you're able to cover the entire spectrum. One of the questions that I'm going to quickly pick up, which Mary Lou has just sent in. So Mary says, commute time what? So commute time learning, Mary, this is a behavioral data point that came up where a lot of us actually commute to and fro from work every day. So in that time, we're always on a device mostly, or we're listening to music, or we're watching a video. So that's just a great time for your learner to actually access information. So we call it commute time learning. All right, everybody, just give me a quick second. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and share my Captivate screen now. And please keep your questions coming. And before I show you Captivate 2017, Chris, absolutely no commute time learning if you're driving a vehicle or flying an aeroplane. So you can't be on a device at that time. Absolutely not. So how many of us have downloaded the new version of Captivate 2017? And how many of us have given it a shot? Okay, not yet, not yet. I'm seeing a not. Mixed bag, mixed bag. All right. Then I guess it's time for me to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen just fine? You should be able to see the Captivate 2017 UI. Okay, awesomeness. Here we go. So guys, this is Captivate 2017. Couple of things in the UI, which you will notice have changed. If I go to the File menu and I go to New Project, we now have something called Responsive Project, which was there in the previous version, but now we do not have those breakpoints anymore. Instead of the breakpoints, remember I mentioned something about a device-specific preview menu? That's what we have now. So instead of having the breakpoints where you just go ahead and yeah, Tammy, isn't it? I know. I always use this project for I'm going to use this project to show everybody something really amazing. So With the new version of Captivate, you now have a device-specific preview menu where you can go through multiple devices. You can also choose to now move this responsive slider here on the right-hand side to actually broaden or slim down parts of the screen, where you can now go ahead and then you can add it as a new custom preview. Now, the project that you guys see on screen right now is a project that will be available for free download. It's a fabulous project which uses something called fluid boxes. Now, with fluid boxes in Captivate, you're able to go ahead and add content to a fluid box where your content will start automatically resizing according to that fluid box. So the fluid box, and since in today's session we're not going to be talking too details about fluid boxes, there is a couple of comprehensive videos that I've created very recently for fluid boxes and Captivate 2017. I will share that with all of you at the end of the session, so you can take your time over the weekend where you can actually go ahead and start tinkering around with the tool and using it. Now, the one thing that we were going to be talking about today was how you can move a unresponsive legacy project, put it into Captivate 2017, and then send it out as a responsive project. So I'm going to open this project, which is Ideal Gas Law. It's a unresponsive project. It was created in Captivate 8 or 9, and the author of this project is Tammy Moore, who is on the session. So huge round of applause for Tammy, because her project is now going to be part of an amazing transformation. Now, once you move your project into Captivate 2017, you want to be able to go to the File menu. And when you go to the File menu, there's going to be a new entry here that you're going to be noticing that says Save as Responsive. Now, this was an option that was not available in the last version of Captivate, but it's here now. I'm going to click on Save as Responsive, and I'm going to say Save. I'm going to save the project, save it again. Now, drum roll, please. Now, isn't that cool? This feature was the toast of the town at the conference yesterday. Now, you can use the Save as Responsive feature for any unresponsive project. It's an absolutely fantastic way for you to start moving your non-responsive content. Now, a lot of us have a lot of content that's already available in Microsoft PowerPoint. You will have legacy projects from Captivate which you would want to move into a mobile framework, and the Save and Responsive option is the way to go forward. It's just 2 clicks. You open your non-responsive project and you save it out as responsive, and then you reopen it in Captivate and it's ready to go mobile. And Chris, absolutely, you might have to reformat some font sizes or text caption boxes. You will also want to look at not using overlapping objects. And Zishan is here, who's been responding to some of your questions. So any kind of design aesthetic questions where you might want to know is something that we are going to be coming out with very soon. We are going to be first looking at, because one of the things that I'm going to be working with Zishan and the team is, we're going to be, since we're road testing it still, and a lot of our user community is as well, we're going to come up with a comprehensive list of do's and don'ts, pretty much, from a design angle. And the legacy course has to be a Captivate 8 or 9 project, non-responsive. And for many of you who might be using mobile courses from Captivate 9, yes, you can still open them in Captivate 2017, and you will still get to see your breakpoints. So that does not change at all. So if you have any old mobile project that will mobile ready from a previous version, you can go ahead and you can just use them as they are in Captivate 2017. You would still get to see all of the mobile responsiveness. Let me just quickly, let's resize this back to what it was. And one of the reasons why I wanted to choose this project is because I did not tinker with this project at all. I wanted to be really upfront with all of you. I did not do any pre-formatting to this project. It was a straight download. I went ahead and just used it as is because I think that is what most of our users will be doing. You will be moving all your content as is. But as Chris and some of the folks are now talking about, it's always a good idea for you to be able to move your content as is, because a lot of the placements, for a lot of them, will have to be moved. I want to move it back to the desktop mode now. You just stretch it out. Now, one of the things that's going to happen is when you actually save it out as a responsive file and it reopens, the Suggest Fluid Boxes option pops up here on the right-hand side. The fluid boxes would actually go ahead and add a fluid box to different sections of your content. In this case, it's going to look at how many different types of sections that it can see and add the fluid boxes accordingly. Now, fluid boxes, for a lot of you might have just heard the term, is this revolutionary way for you to optimally use white spaces in your content. And the fluid boxes themselves act in a parent-child relationship. So you could have a fluid box, which is the parent. In this case, it's FB1. And inside FB1, you can have a child fluid box. Each one of these fluid boxes has its own properties. You can choose to stylize them. You can also choose different flows, different wrap points. Let me just play around with this really quick. The wraps, I can change the wraps here, wrap to next column, and so on. Center alignment is allowed as well. You can also stretch to fit and also constrain proportions in some case. But all in all, the way that this is moving forward is that now you have that opportunity to move all your content which is not mobile ready at the moment and get it mobile ready, because I think the basis of design for your content will still remain the same. You would still follow the design rules and the design aesthetics for your content. So there will be a certain degree of rework, and it's always good to know what the rework is to save time, and that is something that we'll be giving to you guys in a due course of time. It won't take us very long. We're almost at the end of that document, which will actually talk away about what are the do's and don'ts for the specific content piece. Let me just go ahead and just go back into the webinar room. And of course, from a publishing standpoint, publishing will of course be device agnostic. It will again go ahead and reform and refit itself to any device. It will not remain constrained to any of the dimensions that you put up here. These dimensions are only for you to kind of preview this on the fly in the design menu. Post you actually going ahead and publishing this content, the content will then go ahead and resize itself beautifully and automatically. Okay, let me just quickly come back into the room here. I'm going to quickly just stop sharing my screen for just a quick minute. I'm going to take up a couple of questions here. Nancy has a question that says, is that like CSS flow divs? So Nancy, like the way that I like to think about fluid boxes is that I like to think of them as a wonderful way for you to lay out content, something I can draw a parallel to if any of you have used InDesign before. Now, in InDesign, you could actually lay out content in a column or vertical, and you could put text and pictures together. So the reason I would like to use InDesign is that I was doing a lot of magazine publication at one time, and it just gave me a lot of freedom to make interesting layouts. So that's one way for you to actually look at it if you want to understand how Fluid Boxes works. Another question has come up from Allison. Allison mentions, how do you first get into Adobe Captivate? So Allison, if you're just starting out on Captivate, there are a couple of sites that you should visit. One is Adobe Know-How. I'm going to put it here in the chat pod. Now with Adobe Know-How, you would get a comprehensive list of tutorials from beginner all the way to expert. So there's an entire series there that's first-time users for Captivate, how to create your first responsive project, how to create your first video tutorial, your first screen simulation, how to assimilate a project, and so on. So it's always, if you're actually starting out using the tool for the first time, I would actually advise you to go ahead and look at Know-How. Lynda.com has a lot of material out there. And of course, webinars such as these, where you have graciously come and joined us, you get to learn a lot. There are a lot of community experts out here on webinars such as these. If you are looking to communicate more with such folks, join elearning.adobe.com. It's always important for you to stay in touch with what other folks are doing in terms of best practices, and also what kind of stuff other folks are doing, so that you can learn from that. Alex has a question which I was peppered with yesterday at the conference from a lot of folks, where they asked, will Captivate 2017 be part of the Adobe Creative Cloud package? So Alex, at the moment, this is something that is a business decision that we are currently still discussing. The main reason is I believe Captivate, Adobe Captivate Prime, is absolutely part of a completely different outlook and a mindset. We cater to education, learning, and development, whereas Creative Cloud is for creative design. Now, a lot of users who are present here, as well as me as well, are actually going ahead and using a lot of tools from Creative Cloud as well. So for example, I use a lot of Premiere Pro for post video production, or I use a lot of Illustrator if I want to create great looking icons, or I want to create vector graphics which look great. But all in all, this is something that we are discussing, and who knows, maybe down the road. But if your interest in the product is from a subscription point of view, Captivate is available as a subscription as well on a monthly basis. So you can use Captivate month on month. So I hope that answers your question, Allison, as well as and his name is just, his question's been answered. Someone's removed the name, but I hope that answered your question. And folks, keep sending your questions in. One of the things that we did do is just a couple of days ago, we had a full-fledged launch demonstration of Captivate 2017. So those are available for, that's available as an on-demand webinar. It was a comprehensive webinar which I did, where I went through every new feature one by one. We will share that on-demand link with you. Yes, Cheryl, so that is possible. So every Fluid box has its own properties when it comes to look and feel, as well as font sizes. And Jishan, you can correct me if I'm wrong in any way. And for today, this is something that I've been doing regularly. So my team here from Adobe kind of knows that is, since I'm such a huge fan of microsizing everything, I've started leaving a lot of our participants on webinars a little early. So in that case, we have 10 minutes to go, and I want to take as many questions as you guys have. So please keep your questions coming. We are still online, and please put in your opinions in the polls. So what kind of e-seminars and webinars do you guys want to see coming out of the Adobe arsenal? What would you guys like to see? would you guys like to know more about Adobe Captivate Prime? What kind of learning management system are you guys looking at? Are you guys presently looking out for a learning management system? Are you not that pleased with your present environment? Do you want to know more about where we are in terms of the evolution of Prime? We would love to go ahead and have a conversation with you guys. The price for Captivate is, as Zishan mentioned, is $1,099 USD for the perpetual license for a lifetime, and it's $29.99 per month for subscription. So that's the difference. Oh, great. So Brandy mentioned they currently use the Relias Learning Management System. I've used that. It's a pretty good one. So one of the reasons why I keep mentioning Adobe Captivate Prime as a part of our bigger story is because Captivate Prime has evolved into a much more mature learning management system than it was a year ago. All the way from you being able to enroll learners to being able to trigger automatic learning plans, to be able to use the Fluidic Player, which is proprietary of Prime, to be able to play any kind of content across PDF, DocX, MP4, and so on. So if you guys haven't tried it yet, give it a shot. It's available for trial download as well, along with Adobe Captivate through 2017. And thank you, Catherine. I'm very pleased that you did. Thank you for that comment. I will go ahead and talk to the team about it and said that you like it. So I saw one of the questions that came up not too long ago, and I would like to address it. So I believe for me, personally, Captivate is a better end-to-end learning solution. It has something for everybody. You necessarily don't need to be a user of any level, beginner, medium, or expert, but you can also be somebody who just likes doing, let's say, video, or somebody who just likes doing audio narration. It gives you those options. So it's extendable, it's scalable, and the best thing, this is the way I learned Captivate, honestly, is the resources for Captivate and the people who use Captivate out there is rock solid. You not only get to understand how to use features, but you also get to communicate with folks who can tell you that there is another way to do the same thing. So just this robust community and the scalability of the tool is what attracts me to it. Beautiful. Judy has a question in the question and answer pod where I think it's it's towards the LMS system Prime. She says, does it also track ILT? So Judy, yes it does. One of the newest features in Adobe Captivate Prime this time is something called course equivalency, where you can have a course which can be delivered in different ways. You can have ILT, you can have virtual classroom, or you can send it out as an e-learning module, and Prime can track them all individually. Prime can now also help you schedule any of your webinars or any of your modules for automatic distribution. So, for example, let's say one of your learners actually left home base or headquarters and had to travel to a field office. Prime can actually track using your internal network that they changed their location, and it would start delivering content according to that change. So it's just so smart in that way and just makes your life a whole lot easier instead of you bringing another piece of content and then delivering it to them. And Arshit, we have full support for accessibility. It's ADA compliant, 508 compliant. Yes, it is. And so I'm going to now just go ahead and give my vocal cords a bit of a rest and send this back over to Gary. And just before I do that, just wanted to thank all of you for your time today. It's been a really long week for me with the conference, but my email ID is right here. Please feel free to send me any comments, suggestions, if you just want to have a conversation. I really enjoy talking to all of you, the good and the bad. I think that's how innovation happens. You learn from each other. And I'm just really glad that I'm part of a rock solid community. So thanks everybody. And Gary, thank you for setting this up as usual. I'm just going to kick it back to you now.
And Beam, thank you so much for a great webinar. I invite everybody to put your comments about the webinar and about the information you've gotten from Beam today in the chat. Beam, could you put up that slide again where people can see where to learn more about Captivate and Captivate Prime? Because right now we're not sharing a screen. And thank you to everybody for attending today, and most especially thank you so much to Adobe for being a great participating partner in Training Magazine Network, and to Beam, of course, for providing excellent webinars. We have a lot of webinars that have been recorded by Beam and Alan Partridge, Pooja Jaising, and others, and I'm going to give you the link to the recorded webinar archive where all those on-demands are. So give me one moment for that. And if you have any questions about how to use the Insights widget or any of the other tools in Training Mag Network, then you can ask me at the conclusion of the webinar. Otherwise, keep them coming for Beam. I think we have about 2 more minutes. So I put that link in the chat there. Thanks again, everybody, for coming today. Beam, any final thoughts before we close it out?
No, Gary, thanks so much for setting up these sessions. I think at the advent of us getting a new release out, it's really important for us to communicate the value proposition and what new features are there. So I just thank you as usual for your wisdom and your rock solid support. So thank you, Gary.
Always happy to have you. In fact, we're looking forward to more webinars with Beam and everybody else at Adobe on some of the new products. You know, there is one other thing I'd like to give everybody before we close that, and that is the link to Alan Partridge's webinar that is coming up on April 26th. If you missed this earlier on as we started the webinar, you can look at it right here. I'll put this link in the chat here. The topic will be 6 steps to expand employees' critical thinking skills. So Dr. Partridge is, of course, another product expert and product evangelist at Adobe, one of Beam's colleagues, and his webinars are always great. So click that link to learn more from us, and we hope to see you at that webinar and many more. Thanks, everybody. Wonderful.